invite Brock Pierce up on stage and say a few words.
Set. Thank you. Yeah, I don't just commit that easily to things. Kurt, we met at a Capital Group event, and we continued to meet repeatedly, actually at Jason Kelcanis's events, which, as a friend, I've tried to attend now. I think I've been speaking on blockchain. Turn more volume, I think. The back can't hear. But I would speak at Jason's events for the last 3-4 years on crypto-related things, and I kept seeing Kurt there, just hustling to help every entrepreneur he could. And when you start to see interesting people that are going out of their way to pay it forward for everyone else they can, with every free minute they have in their day, and they ask you for something, those are people you bet on. And it didn't cost me anything other than saying, hey, I'll show up for whatever it is that you do. And I just want to thank Kurt for everything he's done and everyone else that's contributed to this event. I've been building tech in Los Angeles since the 90s, raised $88 million in 97 through 99 in LA tech. When I should have moved to the Bay Area, I consistently didn't, because I always thought that content would be king, or something that was happening in LA and its diversity, its greater complexity, its scale would lead to it being something that mattered more to the future than it has historically. And today is, I think, a testament to that. Silicon Beach has never really stuck, and if I have my way, we'll be calling this Blockchain Beach soon enough. This is for the lawyers. Everyone can read that in the back. Wonderful. I want to just take you through at least a part of my journey and what's led me here, and that is by taking you back in time to the video game ecosystem, online games or persistent worlds, which is how I found myself here, and that is that you have intangible objects in these games, virtual currency, virtual goods, and in video games, and I grew up playing games, you didn't actually it didn't have any value because it was you and the machine. What happened is when we started networking the game as well as making it persistent, meaning you'd log on and come back and those assets would continue to persist. And I spent all of my adult life for the most part in that space, and here's a new film coming out.
I struggled for years trying to explain what it was I was doing.
Usually I just say I work with video games, because if I say, I'm a virtual currency broker, people just kind of look at you like, what?
You've got games that are based entirely on selling gold on Facebook. Virtual worlds are creating demands, and somebody's going to have to meet those demands. They don't. Somebody like me would.
It was at that time that I realized that people spend money on virtual things no differently than they would for tangible things. That was kind of that eureka moment for me. And that's really when my company was on its way to doing $100 million in revenue.
And they said, so what you got to do, you got to take all the profit, and you got to give it to us, or we're going to sue you tomorrow. But I always looked at this as something that could go poof instantly.
From play money, I guess, to to real money, but some of this is interesting. So in my early 20s, I built up in China a 400,000 person supply chain that were playing games like World of Warcraft and Second Life and things professionally to mine digital currency that I was selling all over the world. Early 2000s, I was PayPal's largest customer in the world for 3 years, Google's largest advertiser for a little while, basically built Alipay and a handful of other things. And that's what eventually led to me getting into this business. So let's talk about what are the things that are happening today that make this so interesting. What's different than kind of everything else? And it's this combination of macro trends. And if you want to understand where the world is going, try to understand what are the drivers. And one of the big ones is this concept of open source software. We're moving from a world of building proprietary things for me or my company to benefit me and, you know, my shareholders or whatnot, to a world of open source things where I don't have to keep rebuilding and recreating the wheel. I can start to leverage other people's, you know, work in a way that we can co-collaborate and hopefully make the world better. And this is a big thing that's happening. And historically, open source software, which I think has already proven that it's vastly superior, hasn't basically replaced everything because it's voluntary, meaning the people that work on open source technologies today are volunteering their time, either because they want social credit or they want, you know, some sort of bragging rights or philanthropic, you know, sort of things that they just want to be a part of. But the problem is when everyone has to contribute their time for free, you know, some people still need to eat. And so what's happened here in this space is we've added the incentivization layer to the open source movement. You can now make more money building open source software, working for yourself, volunteering your time to whomever you choose, and do better than working for someone else. That's a very, very big change, and the entire world is going open source. This concept of, again, proprietary ownership. I need to own that car. I want that big house. You know, we're moving to a world of shared things where we can, you know, be more efficient in how we utilize, you know, the things that we are making in this world, which is a positive thing. And lastly, we're moving from a world of centralized systems to decentralized systems. You know, everybody in the world was an entrepreneur for the most part up until the Industrial Revolution. It's the Industrial Revolution that created these giant centralized institutions beyond just the church and state. And we're flattening the world again now. I want to focus on this one in particular. I'm one of the founders of Blockchain Capital, and our logo is now a digital starfish. If you're not following decentralization, you should read this book. It's called the Starfish and the Spider. And the idea is if you cut the leg off a spider, what happens? It walks with a limp. A second leg, more of a limp, and its head, it's dead. Now with a starfish, on the other hand, if you cut that leg off, it'll grow back. But if you cut off any part of the center of this starfish with that leg, it'll become a new starfish. If you cut it 5 ways through the center, it will become 5 starfish. And this is this idea of decentralized systems occurring naturally in nature. It's the resilience of them. It's their censorship resistance and such, where the world is moving from big centralized systems with, you know, central authority and control that, you know, isn't a bad thing, but corrupts over time, to decentralized and distributed systems. Might be worth just talking about this one today because we've had a lot of forking lately, and forking leads to spooning or something. But forking isn't bad. Forking is actually essential. None of us would be here today if it weren't for forking and spooning. No, it's called, when a baby is born, it's a fork. And not all forks are bad, and progress comes from it. It's when we have contentious forks, which also sometimes lead to progress. It's just messy progress. And when it's open source and you see how the sausage is made, it might be not so pretty. But just understand that this isn't a bad thing. This is how progress is made. This is how in decentralized systems, if you don't like leadership, you can change it. And so we're seeing the earliest examples of this. Don't sell your coins if you're not sure what you're doing. Just hold them all because you don't know for a while. Everybody wants me to talk about numbers, so I'll do a couple of these. All the world's top VCs are investing. There's one that was left off this list, which is Sequoia. They're in. Congratulations. Welcome to the party. But this is the data that I found compelling for a while because, you know, everybody would say, oh, overnight success, overnight success. trust me, working full-time in this space the last 6 years has not been overnight, and nor has it been easy, and in most cases resulted in anything but success. But venture capital started coming into this space in 2014 on numbers that were similar to the internet in 95, and in 2015, similar to the internet in 96. And those are the sort of data points and comparisons you want to look for to try and draw analogies and things that will help you, hopefully find insight. The big difference, though, is back then, it cost you $5 million to build a website to sell anything online. Today, because of open source, because of things like Amazon Web Services and blockchain-based storage and the things that are coming, this is going to be done very cheaply. But the time that it takes to plant those seeds, water them, and turn them into call it the bridges, the roads, and the infrastructure has taken this time. We now have that. We're now ready to scale, but you'll see in 2016 we flatlined. And that's because the generalist VCs said, I don't see enough revenue. Where are the exits? Where are the exits? I've got exposure. And so as the entrepreneurs were coming in, and better ones, this is the stuff that kept giving me conviction to keep working through difficult times, because I kept seeing new amazing people voting with their feet, walking away from million-dollar opportunities, and that's what you ultimately want to see. You're looking for reassurance. None of us are certain about anything, unless we're maybe crazy, but what happened is the VC stopped investing. And so the entrepreneurs, being tenacious, did what they're supposed to do, which is find another way. And that's where the ICO model came back. I was one of the founding board members of Mastermind. J.R. Willett invented the idea. We were the first ICO back in June of 2013. And it really wasn't something that took off in a meaningful way for a while, because it was something you did if you had philosophical views about where the market was going and the technology that would drive it, or because you couldn't raise money anywhere else. And so last year, we had 64 ICOs raising a little over $100 million. And again, that was similar. It was philosophical views or people that couldn't raise money elsewhere, and that doesn't mean they didn't have talent. It's just they didn't have options available. But one other thing happened that I've excluded from this list, and that is the DAO. The DAO is an example of what not to do. Make sure you get security audits. Make sure there's not a lot of room for error in this space. And the consequences of making a mistake like that may cost you your life. One thing, again, if you're working in this space, make sure you got proper legal advice. Make sure you have legal counsel. Every time I've spoken publicly since 2013, when people said there's no regulation here, I've said, yes, there is. There are a lot of laws from the 1930s, 40s, et cetera, that do exist, and they may be relevant to you. And the consequences for some money laws, a number of them actually in the world, are one of two things. It's either the death penalty or life in prison. The consequences in this sector when you're playing with monetary systems are extreme, beyond your imagination. Make sure you're getting advised. It's really important. But what happened with the DAO is something else very fascinating, and that is that they raised an extraordinary amount of money, more than $100 million in their ICO, and that sent a very important message to the market. It said that this model scales, even though they did it wrong. But the model scales, and it's caused entrepreneurs that might get a term sheet from Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia, Goldman Sachs, whoever it might be. Think of your dream investor, whoever that might be, Mark Cuban, whatever. You might say that this is a better model now. You may forego that in exchange for this new thing because it might be bigger and better. And so, what happened this year? The numbers obviously have gone through the charts. We're probably at about $2.5 billion, $3 billion, and seem to be happening in terms of resources contributed to projects in this space. And I like this one. This chart is venture capital versus ICOs in the early stage. ICOs are delivering resources to innovators around the world at a rate 4 times greater than venture capital. At Blockchain Capital, having seen this trend occurring, and having seen all these utility tokens, many of which I don't like, and I don't like the structure. I don't have a problem with utility tokens, but I think the model can improve. I think we can do better, and I think a lot of people were creating convoluted structures for the purposes of circumventing securities law, which I think in many cases they did compliantly. But what they did is they made an inferior product. They didn't offer their customers, their users, their community everything they can. And so we did this BCAP thing more as an experiment and to show people a model that you can fork. that you can run with, that you can copy. This is open for all of you. This is not something proprietary. Take advantage of it, please. But that was doing BCAP's third fund as an entirely digital security offering. We utilized the Jobs Act, Regulation D and S specifically, full offering memorandums, the things to do it compliantly. And, you know, in whatever, 16 minutes, half an hour, we raised our third fund from, you know, a ton of people across 80 countries, and, you know, wanted to show people that venture capital is kind of dead in its historical form. But going forward, you know, the structure is going to go away, but the role of helping entrepreneurs and innovators will not. You know, we're going to continue to, they're going to need resources, they're going to need advice, they're going to need connections, they're going to need mentorship. But the digital security thing, I think, is a big deal. And this is the one that is most interesting, not as much to LA, but to the rest of the world. This is a global phenomenon. But why that matters is that most of the world's innovation currently comes from the West Coast of the United States. And it's not because we're smarter. It's not because we're better. It's because the capital to finance innovation has been here. And so we've had an advantage over everyone else in the world, and that advantage is about to go away. And that is that anyone in the world, if, you know, the next Einstein, Mozart, Mark Zuckerberg is in Africa, from anywhere in the world, the best innovators are now going to have access to actually build. Where you're born is not going to be the thing that determines your ability to get shit done. I want to talk briefly about kind of my latest significant project, which is Blockone. We're making a thing called EOS. And the reason I want to talk about this is I want to talk about some structural issues, nothing to do with the technology in the world. And that is this centralized system where you've got three parties all interacting through that central server. And this is more or less the way the entire world is architected. And I think I can directly attribute many of the problems in the world to the corporation itself. And that's not to say corporations are bad. They came out of the Industrial Revolution, and the railroad barons are the ones that created the corporation to be able to bring in the capital. And we talked about how the world used to be to what it's become. It was the Industrial Revolution that drove a lot of this. And it was this system where you have, you know, a customer, you know, an employee, a shareholder. A customer, you know, wants the best products and service, often the cheapest, preferably for free. I want my MTV. Then you've also got the employee that wants to do work that they feel good about, but ultimately wants to be paid as much as they possibly can for their services. And you've got the shareholder, who ultimately just wants to take 100% of the profit to the extent they can, more if possible, right? And so you've got this misalignment of interest between these parties. And I think most of the world's problems come from this. Most of us that have done any business understand when there's an alignment of interest between the two parties, that relationship is typically going to work well. And when there's a misalignment of interest, no matter what the contract says, it's normally going to end in tears. And so the corporation, when you start to think about the structural, you know, the foundation of the world, is I think where the problem lies. And so my partner, Dan Larimer, introduced this idea of what's called a DAC, or a Decentralized Autonomous Corporation or Organization. He invented the term in 2014 while doing BitShares. He eventually built Steemit before doing EOS. And I think that this is, you know, the thing that can fix structurally a lot of what's wrong in the world. And it's because you're open sourcing everything. And in that open source sort of world, you're delivering things like transparency and auditability and inclusiveness, the things that are ultimately, you know, the objectives that we should be striving for. And in doing that, you've aligned all the interests, because what happens is, to be a customer of a DAC, to be a token holder, normally you have to be, you know, a token holder to be able to buy that product or to participate in that ecosystem or that tribe in some way. But to do that means I'm probably benefiting from whatever that ecosystem does and however that token appreciates. And so I've gone from being a customer, and I've somehow inadvertently become something that looks a little bit like a shareholder. And now that as a customer and a shareholder, imagine if you can only buy Apple products with Apple stock. You know, how that would change the nature of the relationship between the customers and the company. And so now that I've done that, now that I actually have upside in everything that ecosystem or tribe is doing, I'm feeling compelled to contribute. Whether that means I want to go tell my friends about the things that we're doing, or maybe I want to start building apps and things on top of that platform. I want to start figuring out what superpowers or skills I have that I can contribute to this project. And I start to look a lot like an employee, but in this future that we're building, there probably aren't going to be jobs. The jobs are going away, and that's not a bad thing. You're going to end up with tribes that you get to participate in, and you're going to wear and participate in those things that are important to you. But what happens is you get this complete alignment of interests where it's no longer about me anymore. It's not about that proprietary, how do I capture value? Oh, I've got some knowledge that I can trade on for my benefit. What happens is when you realign everyone's interests, anything you do benefits me. Anything I do benefits you. And so we move from a world of me to a world of we. And when you start to do this reconstructing of incentives in the fabric or the foundation in the world in which we live, you can actually make things a hell of a lot better. When you start to think about, why you're here and what the opportunity is, it's this sort of stuff. We're rebuilding the world at its foundation. And so when you're building any of your DACs or building your ICO or any of the things that you're doing in this space, remember that you're building a community. The only way your project will succeed is if you bring in lots of people to participate with you and join. The difference between the successful projects and the unsuccessful ones are going to be around the leadership and their ability to build huge followings. It's probably not going to be because they have the best technology. These are big communities, and I want to play this real quick. Volume, please.
Then let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes, and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you bring ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not 2 nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. But over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
I think that's important. I'm one of Satoshi's first followers, as I hope many of us are. But I also want to talk about something else here. Everybody's making lots of money and doing probably very well if you've been in this space at all lately. If not, probably reevaluate the decisions you're making. But I've been spending a lot of my time, wanting to meet every billionaire I can and future billionaire, like a lot of people out there raising money, except for a billionaire to me is not someone with $1 billion. I don't care what money you have. A billionaire to me is someone that's going to positively impact and change the lives of 1 billion people. A unicorn to me is not $1 billion market cap company. It's a company that's going to positively impact the lives of 1 billion people. When you're building communities, that's what it's about. And if you successfully are doing amazing things in the world and succeeding at those things, trust me, abundance and money will follow. Because there's a paradigm shift occurring. And that is this old adage that money is power is changing. Having money won't get you a seat at my table. I want to know what your superpower is. I want to know what you're going to do to use those skills that you've developed and refined over the course of your lives to positively do something in the world. If ever you want to pitch me your deal, the right way to do that is not to say, hi, my company is X, Y, and Z, and I'm doing blank, and I've got an ICO. Will you please advise me? If you actually want to pitch me, please listen to this. Introduce yourself by telling me what your superpower is. Meaning, tell me what you're really good at. Tell me what skill you have. I don't want to get to know you by your company. I want to get to know you by who you are. Tell me what you're amazing at. Tell me what your skills are. Then tell me how you're going to apply those skills that you've refined to do something positive in the world. And then finally tell me, if we're still having a conversation, exactly what that company that you're working on is today that will most likely fail. No, 90% of startups fail in their first 3 years. This is going to be no different. So tell me what you're good at and how you want to use that skill, and what your current project is, which may or may not succeed, but that's the proper way to meet someone. There's this concept of how to get to know people. If you want to succeed at pitching potential people, just start by doing a better job of it, which is introducing yourself properly. And that is that in this new world, money is no longer power, technology is power, consciousness is power, community is power. I like talking about this concept of ikigai, and that is finding your life's purpose, and that's what's going to happen in this world of tribes. The stuff that you're going to be a customer of, the stuff that you're going to contribute to, the stuff that you're going to keep your store of value in are going to be the things that where you find this middle point, which is what the world needs, what you love, and what you're good at. And if you find the middle of that, you'll clearly be paid. I like this concept as well. It's another Japanese term. I love Japanese culture and food and everything else. But Kaizen, it's the concept of change and better, but that means continuous improvement when combined. Every single thing you do, show up and try to be the best you possibly can be. Everything you do, try and improve on it, to the extent you can. And I don't mean recreate the wheel every time, but always be improving. Every situation that you have in life, how do you make it better? Which I think is an important one in this ICO madness. How do you make it better? Another thing, if you want me to be interested in your deal, is tell me what you're doing differently than the last person. My wife, Crystal Rose, will be talking today, but she did something that blew me away. And that is that instead of offering her pre-sale to whales first, she offered her pre-sale to developers first. She said, I'm in my pre-sale going to be developer only. You have to provide your GitHub activity, et cetera, and you get into the deal. Developers got in first because they're the most important people from her perspective in building her community. Not my idea, but that's the point. You can all do that. Find a way to do something better than the last person. Don't do the same thing over again. And there's a lot of other things that you can do in that process. And that is, I think, financial reporting is an important one. I think the market is softening right now, and you feel maybe as you're looking at deals that maybe something's wrong, and there is. You're not comfortable handing over tens of millions of dollars to someone with a white paper and having no form of governance whatsoever existing there, or minimal governance. And I think one of the things that we can all do to be better is just start by committing to actually disclosing some details about what you've done with the money. If you want me in the deal, this is kind of important. Show me that you're going to issue quarterly financials. Show me that you'll get that audited at the end of the year. So I know you aren't giving yourself multi-million-dollar salaries. You're not buying boats, and you're not spending it on parties. We don't have any recourse. At least be transparent. This is a market about transparency. So lockups investing, I think we're already at that point. If you don't have that sort of stuff in there, you're already kind of a dead ICO in my opinion. You haven't done what's already been proven to be best practices. If we want to keep upgrading, if we don't want to have a 1999, 2000 bubble burst, the way we avoid that is by self-regulating and hold ourselves to an ever-rising bar that we all raise together. Transparency and reporting. And then going forward, obviously, there's things like smart contracts where we can have milestones and KPIs, et cetera, but we can't get to that point until we have some sort of post-ICO governance because startups need to pivot. And if you committed to delivering X in the next year or escrowed funds would be returned, that doesn't work because you have to have a governance structure in place to be able to amend things. But at a minimum, I mean, number one and number two, nobody's doing transparent yet. There's not a deal that's been committed. So I hope if you want to stand out and lead and be leaders, do that. I also like this whole concept of who are we? You know, because I find myself always surrounded by an interesting group of people, and I tend to avoid any of the political discussions because I don't affiliate myself really with any of these concepts. But, you know, I meet anarchists, and I get along wonderfully with anarchists. I meet libertarians. I get along wonderfully well with them too, and members of the Green Party, and Democrats and Republicans, and even communists sometimes in terms of their Marxist views. It's called, there's something, we all have these old sort of world labels and terms we use to describe ourselves, but what I've noticed is there's something about everybody in these rooms and with the people with whom I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the years where we may have used historical labels to describe ourselves differently, but we had something in common, something bigger, something that superseded all of these old terms, something new, maybe something better. And, you know, I was in Ibiza with a group of us the other day, and we wanted to try and do a couple of, you know, we wanted to do something special at this, you know, sort of gathering of at a new intentional community. And this was one of it, is how do we describe who we are? And we'll be releasing sort of a manifesto on this. And the working title we have, and this is something that will be released on GitHub and something that everyone is welcome to participate in, but the term that we think that makes sense, at least today, is decentralize. You know, to distribute the administrative powers of functions of a central authority over a less concentrated area. And, you know, I think the thing that, you know, we all have in common right now is we understand that distributed power and distributed authority probably is better than what we currently have. And this is at least the working title, and I encourage everyone to get involved. Couple of predictions, people like this sort of stuff. I think we'll see over 1,000 ICOs this quarter. I said that we'd see over 4 billion raised in London, and I like when I keep seeing my own numbers quoted when I pulled them out of my, well, 10 billion next year. I think security tokens, this is an important one. I think that when you're evaluating your project, don't say, how do I, you know, pass the Howey test, or how do I be a utility token? Ask yourself what's best for your users, what's best for your community, and work backwards from there. And if a security token is what makes the most sense to your community, be a security token. If a utility token makes the most sense, be a utility token. But always operate from the perspective of what's best for your community. If you do what's best for you, I promise you'll fail down the road. And that reach venture capital and all that stuff's going to go away. Oops. I want to just touch on this since I'm talking too long. How many of you know what this event is? This is an event called Burning Man. And if you look closely at my boots today, I'm wearing playa dust. But for those of you that don't know what this is, Burning Man is built on decentralization principles. If you haven't been, this is something you may not know. But this is the greatest experiment, I think, happening on the planet today when testing new forms of governance. And that's not to say they're perfect. We're running tests, just like all of us as entrepreneurs. These are multivariant tests. Some are going to be good ones that should be repeated, some not so much. But if you want to ever be inspired, there's no place that will demonstrate what humanity is capable of in a way that will touch you more deeply than this, a world without money where everything can be done differently. And I want to just touch on this real quick.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream, and that you could, for example, have the power within one night to dream 75 years of time. You would have every kind of pleasure you see. make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. And finally, you would dream where you are now.
And so I firmly believe that the blockchain is a technology that will change the world. That's far bigger than the internet. I mean, think of the old internet as basically just a system for insecure data transmission, and the blockchain is now the system for secure data transmission. It's going to replace everything because it's just the upgraded version in a world where security matters. But technology is an enabling thing. It isn't conscious. It doesn't know good or bad. Money isn't bad either. It's an enabling tool. It's what we do with it that matters. And so we have an opportunity to change the world. And the future could be very good or very bad, and it will be determined by those of us who build it. And so I beg you, I plead with you to operate with integrity. In this new world of abundance that we're creating, you do not need to compromise your integrity for anything and ever. And this is a big family for those of you that are newcomers and don't understand how it works. Those of us that have been building this system for a while look after each other. And we are about radical inclusion. Everyone is welcome, but operate with integrity. And that's basically the main requirement in this space. Because we're not competing. Even if the person sitting next to you wants to do the same thing as you, you are not competing. It's multivariant testing, and you're taking two different approaches to solving the same problem. And if you think that person operates with integrity and is talented, you should be participating in their token sale too. You know, you're not competing. The only people we compete with are people that show up here and don't operate with integrity because the future depends on it. And I encourage you to dream. Thank you, Peter, these shots, and Laura, and Isaiah, and we believe, dream big. You know, people have been calling me a magician lately because they don't know what other title to give me, but magic is real. You can make it, I promise. The EOS logo is a chestahedron. The chestahedron is the sacred geometrical shape of the heart discovered in the year 2000. You wouldn't think that new geometry is being found this recent in time, but the reason we selected that symbol is because we love what it represents. If you're going to build a technology to change the world, let's do it with love and heart. And let's not forget about this place that we all share, and at least try to be the best stewards we can be of the systems and the communities and such that we operate from. And I, again, encourage everyone to believe we can change the world and everything is possible. This is my wedding at Burning Man last year. Not this year, but the year before, 2 burns ago. It was an all-unicorn wedding. Bridesmaids, groomsmen, color of the rainbow plus pink. My best man there, might be somewhere in the audience, was dressed in black, cracking a whip. But I think it's, you know, in terms of the blockchain technology is that thing that can change the world. I think it's Burning Man culture or something akin to it that will save it. Thank you. And if you have any other questions for me, you can always find me at brock.ai. The artificial intelligent version of me there is to answer any questions you have. Have a wonderful conference. Thank you all for being here.
I have a few questions for you.
All right.
Thank you, Brock.
Thank you.
For the folks who are out here, what are the 2 things they can do right now when they go back home or at their work that can get them to where we want the community to go?
Well, I mean, the main thing is if you're new, you don't necessarily understand how these communities functions. They function, and it's a family. In a world where it's about open source and it's about sharing of information, it's about contributing. If you're new, the main thing I would encourage you is don't show up and thinking that there's some fear of missing out. You are not late. If you are in this room, you are early. There's only 10 or 20 million people in this space. Do not panic. Don't go run in and start putting your money into things that you don't understand. You are not late. And don't go jump into the first project. If you're new to this space and you want to learn, start meeting people and figure out how you can help. Don't ask what you can get. Figure out how you can take the skills that you have to contribute to the projects that they're working on, and don't commit. You know, sleep around it. You're new to a space. Get to know people, and if you're like, this feels good, you may want to do more of it. I mean, but get to know people, and at some point, once you've been in the space for 6 months or a year, you're eventually going to start to get a strong intuition, and you're going to start to understand the things that make sense to you and the things that you want to do more of. And, you know, I mean, that's the first thing is figure out, go meet a bunch of people today, and don't ask what they can do for you. Figure out what you can do for them.
Thank you, Brock. Appreciate it.
Thank you.